Welcome back, everybody. It's the OK Grognard Show. It is Tuesday, October 27th, 2020, 10 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Well, it's Tuesday. That means it's a cartography and world building day. Last week we were talking about social structure, and there's another section that we left off with last week, and we're jumping over forms of government and stuff, and I think that's a bigger topic that's worth separating out at a later date, and just taking a closer look at the follow-up section for what was it? It was oh yeah, social class and rank in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So that was what we talked about last week. There is a government forms section that follows that, and a royal nobles, and here, I'll just pop it up on the thing here. Government forms, and it gets into, I don't know, about a dozen and a half different types of governments. And then you get into royal and noble titles from Northern Europe, royal and noble titles, some Asian forms, as Gary put it back in the day. And then it jumps down to the town and city social structure. And I thought this was a section that we could get a good look at and pour through in a regular show. I think the others require a longer form, and since we've got some longer shows coming up in the not too distant future, with the longer shows that, actually, they don't fall on those days. I was going to say with Gamehole Con, but that's going to be a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday show that'll each be, I say an hour, but really it's 50 minutes. We want to give, it's taking a time slot, an hour time slot in the morning for each of those days that Gamehole Con, virtual Gamehole Con exists. We'll do them as seminars. We'll call them 50 minutes, really, because you want to give people a bit of time between slots to go and get to their next event, whatever it is, starting at 11 if they are. You don't want them showing up late at another thing because they couldn't get connected or whatever. Better to let them get there early. Mew Mew V. Time before your Zoom meeting. Well, I'll tell you, it's easy enough to see that what we're looking at today is world building, as always on Tuesdays, that or cartography, but town and city social structure today. So that's where we're at. Oop. I guess we want to do this. There we go. Take a look at town and city social structure. Let's get into it. Cities and towns have typically attracted the independent and free-thinking sorts, as they offer more opportunity for such lifestyles, even considering the medieval, rather intolerant community. In towns and cities, there are a few nobles and gentlefolk of knightly status. The social structure can be shown as follows. Upper class, nobles, gentlemen, the wealthiest of merchants and most important guild masters, from which are drawn the most important lawmakers and executives. Middle class, merchants and guild masters with master artisans and the like, making up the balance. They provide lesser officials. Lower class, tradesmen, journeymen, laborers, and all others form the lower class. From their number is drawn the common council. This gives a typical medieval city or town government a structure which is formed of mayor, magistrate, or burgermeister, probably a lifetime office drawn only from the upper class, aldermen, burghers, or burgesses, who are chosen by the upper class to serve as the major officers under the mayor et al., the judiciary and military commanders of the municipality are likely to fall within this stratum. Let's see. Oh, and then the stratum, and then we're down over here. Aldermen are elected by the middle class. Law enforcement officials, customs officials, and tax officials all come from the middle class too. Councilors of the Common Council are likely to be selected by the upper and middle classes, as well as the free lower class. From this class are drawn the petty officials, so roles are advisory and administrative only. The constabulary of a town or city will be drawn in part from citizen soldiers. The city watch or police force and militia called up in times of great need. Most other soldiery, by far the bulk, in most cases, will be hired mercenaries. When any army is fielded, the leading men of the city are likely to be in overall command with assistance from military captains, the force being a composite of the municipal levies and the hired soldiers. Note, such forces could be of considerable magnitude in battle, as noted by the history of London, for example, or the military history of the Hanseatic League. We get into economics next, so we're going to talk about this for a little bit. You've got a few choices to make, world building wise, when you go with your town and city social structure. One of the first and easiest choices to make is to just kind of gloss over things. Make it as easy on yourself as possible. Don't create lots of stuff that are not going to come into interaction with the player characters. So you can say there's a mayor and you can give him a name, but how much time do you want to spend on it? Because how much time, unless the mayor is pleading with adventurers to take up some cause or mission or quest, it's unlikely they're going to spend any time or get to know the mayor at all. The constabulary, you're definitely going to have some of them in the front lines of people between the adventurers and the backdrop of whatever setting you have, because they're going to be on the streets, going to see them out and about. They may interact with them by choice, or they may interact with them just by being questioned. You've got to assume there are other things going on that the constabulary have to deal with, whether they're petty crimes or somebody made a noise complaint, or somebody said there was something suspicious in some part of town, and so they're there to go have a look. They're going around, they're checking doors, they're checking window locks, shutters, that sort of thing at night. During the daytime, they're keeping an eye on the market for pickpockets and other petty thieves. Anything that's out of the ordinary in a small town is going to attract the attention of those people who are in charge of making sure everything stays normal. So, certainly there'll be some, if some adventurers intrude on a town. An intrusion is what it's going to be. They don't tread lightly very often. They're not going to be slipping into town, slipping into an inn, staying overnight, and slipping out before dawn. In most cases, they're going to want to resupply. They're going to want to pick up some items that they can get in any old town, whether it's some extra iron spikes, at least some rations, some food, and maybe some beverages of. And you know what? They may be yucking it up and having a grand old time in the local tavern or inn when they do descend on a place, so they're gonna be noticed, and people are gonna be keeping an eye on them. And quite often, that's probably going to take the form of them being questioned. Even if it's a friendly, "Hey, what are you guys doing here on the road, huh? Okay, how long you staying? How long can we expect you to be here doing what it is you do?" They're going to be asking questions. They're going to be wanting things to get back to normal. I mean, sure, there'll be some happy people that a lot of money was spent while they were there, but things being stirred up are not usually good for a quiet community. And they will be happy when, thanks for the money, move along now. We've we appreciate all your patronage and coin, but it's time to go. So if they overstay their welcome, that can also create some problems, and by extension, and maybe some of this is more campaign oriented, but this is speaking to the things that will happen in game that dictate how much world building you're going to do, really, right? Um, there will be some ripple effects to people like that being in town. An influx of cash means that there'll be opportunities for thievery that aren't normally around. The extra eyes turned toward adventurers mean those eyes are not elsewhere. So any small town is going to have a limited police force, a limited constabulary. So they will by necessity have to leave some areas less guarded or less watched than would be normal, and this is going to embolden certain elements of whatever criminal underworld, small may it be, and doesn't have to be organized. It can just be some ne'er-do-well who sees his chance to steal something he's been coveting. And these little things are going to crop up, and when those things crop up, people look for obvious targets. So when stuff does get stolen that has nothing to do with the adventurers, some people are going to suspiciously look at the adventurers. So there are opportunities there. But all of that is to say those are campaign concerns, but you have to be prepared for campaign concerns. So when you think through these campaign scenarios, now we've got an idea of the types of people we need to bake into these small towns, so that when stuff like this happens, we're prepared. World building wise, definitely you want to create some guards. You want to flesh them out a little bit. You want to give them some. Felixion, hey, good to see you, buddy. The the rank and file guards, maybe a sergeant, maybe a captain. These are definitely people you want to have some details on. You definitely want to have names for them. You want to know their. You want to know their race and class, such as it is. They can just be low-level fighters, or you can just zero level them with you know, with clubs and a padded armor or some sort of insignia. You know, they don't have to be anything special other than just some of the bigger, burlier individuals that could be recruited that weren't doing something else, weren't busy working on a farm, or you know, you look like a big tough guy, and I'm in charge of making sure things stay in order in this town. So here's a badge. You're my right hand, whatever. If there's only a couple of people, if there's a handful, then maybe it gets a little more organized. You have to determine, based on how big the town is, how many people are going to be in charge of keeping an eye on things. How many people in the daytime? How many people at night? How many shifts of people do you need? How long does it take to walk the perimeter of the town? Does the town have a wall? If you go to the trouble of building a wall, you probably at least want people at the gates all the time. If you have towers along the wall, if it's a bigger community, you probably want people in the towers most of the time. At least some sort of skeleton crew. Maybe somebody's just going from tower to tower. And maybe there are sections of the wall where people go back and forth, just sort of patrolling, keeping their eyes peeled. These are definitely world building concerns when it comes to the various smaller communities. Yep, it's always a doppelganger. That is so true. Yeah, it's a lot of fun running doppelgangers. They definitely confuse and delight the players. And I say confuse truthfully and delight mockingly because that's not true. I don't think I've never had a situation where players actually wound up saying, wow, I really like that doppelganger. That was fun. They might like a situation, but invariably it's a pulling the rug out moment when they discover that the doppelganger has been yanking their chain all along. The rest of the town structure, when it comes to this whole upper class, middle class, lower class thing, it could be like this. Definitely in towns where wealth dictates this sort of stratification, you're going to want to create some NPCs from each different class. Once again, middle and lower class more so, because these are the people that are more likely to come into contact with the player characters. These types of NPCs, whether they're the almost invariably you want somebody running a general store, because and this happens almost every time, they will ask for something you have not created a store for. I mean, you could create a tannery and a blacksmith and a baker and a jeweler, and you can create 100 different stores. Inevitably, there's going to be something that you want, that the player characters want when they go into a town that doesn't fall under any of the things you've spent time on. And so the general store becomes the, he doesn't usually carry this sort of thing, but there's no such and such in town. And so there's no rope maker. There's a rope maker in the next town over, and when he comes through, I collect I stock a certain amount of it for people. So, anything, always have a catch-all, something that covers you, and definitely that's somebody who's going to be interacted with. So detail him, her, however you want to play it, in a way that And you definitely could throw a monkey wrench in the works and say this is actually the cover from my big bad villain of the is a general store owner. But you probably want to just, in most cases, maybe all cases, make this just an affable individual. You don't want the entire game revolving around the revolving around the general store, probably. So sometimes making them quirky is better than making them deep, if that makes sense. Just a few minor, sort of superficial details about them that are memorable are better than having them have this long, deep background that can be over examined and then ultimately doesn't lead anywhere adventurous. So choose, be careful and carefully choose which baskets you put your eggs in. Where you spend your time world building when it comes to towns, because there is the possibility to go down some serious rabbit holes that are not necessarily all that worth pursuing. Your choice, of course. Sometimes those types of campaigns can be very interesting and very exciting for certain groups of players. You know your players better than anybody. So just be conscious of these choices. Make them deliberately if you can. If you make them accidentally in the moment, that's okay too, but understand why you're making them and what is going to be your role going forward as far as world building when it comes to what the expectations of the players are. You certainly want to flesh stuff out that you know they're going to be looking at or interested in. Sometimes you want to do it, like I say, somewhat superficially, just so that there's something there for them to deal with. If sometimes the interest is in just knowing that there's a place there. And it's funny because they may show interest in something one week, and then you do a whole bunch of work on this in detail and whatever, and you give them this whole sheet with this write up of here's what's available at this place, and here's what you know about the owner and his family and his extended family, and some of the things he's said to you when you've been in and out of the place as far as his trials and tribulations. And it's the next week, and they're like, okay, well, we know enough about this guy. What about the guy next door to him? What is his deal? So be very careful about how much time you put into stuff, because you could find it very frustrating to overinvest in something that seems like it might be interesting to them, only to find out that there's no long-term interest in it. And you've spent a lot of time in between games working on something that doesn't pan out. So try to get your basics down. You can create this sort of a upper, middle, and lower class structure if you want. That one of the nice things about creating structures like this is that they bake conflict into a setting. So when you're world building, you are looking to create natural forms of conflict that can then pan out into interesting adventures and situations that become dramatic during gameplay. Now, you could create all sorts of stories of what's going to happen, but you shouldn't. Let the players decide how things are going to play out. Create the story elements, as I always say. Create the people's places and things, and let the players decide how they're going to interact with those people, places, and things, and let that become the story. Let that gameplay determine what sort of story is going to unfold. That way, they're at the center of it. If you create a backstory for everybody and you decide how each of these people feel about each of these other people in the town, regardless of the players and regardless of the player characters, then write a novel. You know, don't expect your players to buy into all of those stories because it doesn't involve them. I mean, they could force themselves into those stories and try to change those storylines, but player characters aren't meant to be editors of your novel. They're meant to be the centers of their own stories, and that will evolve during gameplay. So find a way to do it that way. Anywho, that's my 2 cents on the town and city social structure and where you should probably put your time in when it comes to world building. So let me just say thank you to everybody who's popped in on the Twitch channel today. Hey, if you do come by the Twitch channel, do yourself a favor and follow the channel. We do something every morning, 10 a.m. We got a regular schedule that we keep up. Today was world building. That's Tuesday. Sometimes it's cartography on Tuesday. Cartography and world building. And then campaign discussion on Wednesday. Thursday is GMing tips, although it's hard not to have a few of those sprinkled into every show, right? Building adventures is on Friday. We do GM reviews on Saturday. They take some book, sometimes an RPG book, sometimes not, or film, or some sort of gaming adjacent media, and review it with an eyeball of a GM. Try to look for things that we can beg, borrow, or steal for our games, and how useful they are, whether they're worth looking at yourself. Rules retrospective on Sunday. Generally, we take a chunk of first edition mechanics and examine them, discuss them, talk about ways they can be interpreted. Sometimes we'll also look at original edition and see how that evolved into what first edition became. Monday is weekly news and announcements day, and back around the horn to cartography and world building on Tuesday. If you're catching up with this on YouTube, thank you very much. Please do subscribe to the channel there. Give us a thumbs up on any videos you watch. We'd appreciate it. And I do also want to say thanks to all the new subscribers over the past few days. Kind of a big bonus from asking people on my birthday and around my birthday if they didn't mind popping over and checking out the channel and subscribing. And a lot of people answered the call. I think we got like 33% more subscribers on YouTube from that. For the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, just want to say thank you and bye-bye.